Snare burger.
One Snare burger coming up! Snare burger!
Hey, you guys!
I think we should point out that this podcast started,
blocking out the sun.
This drum talk night started almost, if not over 2 years ago. 2 years? Has it been 2 years yet?
At least a year. I don't know.
A year. Well,
It's been over a year, hasn't it? Been over a year?
You two, then
Isn't this
I
the second
popped
year?
in, and then
No? Oh, so 2019 is the second year. It's just got to be 18. So, yeah, okay, a year. This is the second year of it. We've never done a podcast with it. But it's 4 of us now. It was 3 of us when it started. Mike Butchie LeBeau and John Kerr, JK, as people know him. We don't know why people call him Just Kidding, but we'll find that out, I'm sure.
Right.
And John Sestito, Drama Sestito. We don't know why people call him Drama yet. We'll find that out as well. And myself, Pete Abdou. Some people call me Abadabadoo. Some people call me Kincaid. Some people call me Asshole.
Maybe we should switch gears though a little bit and
Okay.
discuss something that I've been wanting to do for a while, only because we have to do this before he heads back out on the road. But Pete Abdou,
We have many, many weeks.
we do. But Pete Abdou is the drum tech for the band Volbeat, which if you guys don't all know them, you should, because they're a pretty amazing, tight knit group of Denmark rockers.
From Denmark, yes. Copenhagen.
So Pete's been with them.
Denmark.
How long? How many years you been with them now?
This is my 8th year. with
No.
8 years.
Yeah.
Is it really?
Yeah, this is my 8th year.
No way.
So most drum
Yeah, it
podcasts
flies by, man.
interview
Holy
drummers, famous drummers, but what about the guys that make sure they sound good and their gear is set up so they can give those best shows?
They don't know what the fuck they're doing.
Right. It's like engineers, which I am. They could design all day, but they don't know how to
They just show up
implement.
and drink and pass out on the bus.
So Pete, correct me if I'm wrong. The drummer from Volbeat, his name is John. John what again?
John Larson.
John Larson.
John Larson.
I don't know if
Not
you
to
got
be confused with
Johnny
Casper
Casper.
Boyo Larson, who was the bass player. They are not brothers, just for the record. And anybody listening, they're not brothers.
Not brothers.
No.
So, when everyone thinks of a drum tech,
Larson's I think Larson's a very familiar Danish last name.
oh really?
No.
Kind of like Joe Smith,
Sure.
John Doe.
John Doe.
Most people think drum tech is hauling the drums, setting them up, breaking them down, but
That's it, basically. Piece of cake.
there is way more to that. And if there wasn't, I don't think you'd be doing this for 8 years. How did you end up getting hooked up with Volbeat? I mean, they're a European band. You're here in the States,
yeah.
Massachusetts, bouncing back to California.
Right.
How do you end up meeting a band from Denmark?
It's sex trafficking, wasn't it?
Close. Yeah, that's close. I'd rather not divulge that information.
That
You
podcast
almost
be
hit it
on
right
the
on
dark
yeah,
net.
you almost yeah, the dark net. Yes, exactly. Well, all right. So there's a long and the short of it. The short of it is, I knew a tour manager through someone I played in a band with, through the grapevine type of thing. But if you look at the history of it, the person that actually recommended me was someone. This was 2010 when I met Volbeat. I wasn't working for them yet. I was working for the opening band that was on tour with them
So in 2010,
2010.
Volbeat was a headlining band.
in the U.S.
In the
But
US.
They would do clubs. It was
Yeah.
small venues, theaters,
Still, though,
clubs,
yeah.
right? But they were headlining, and they had a couple openers. And I was in the opening band's crew, doing drum tech for that band. It was called Hourcast, and they're from Boston.
Was it?
Hourcast, Hourcast. They're not around anymore. So I was actually living in California at the time. So I had moved to California, and I get a call. I was doing work in LA. I get a call. Hey, do you want to go on the road as a drum tech? And I hadn't really done it on the road before. I'd always set my own shit up and fix my own stuff and whatever. I said, well, yeah, all right, yeah, I'll give it a shot. So it happens to be for a Boston band. Of course, I have to move 3,000 miles to come back and work for a Boston band, right? So we were opening for Volbeat, that 6-week tour, and we all hung out. I mean, when you're on tour like that, all the bands and the crews, they all hang out. It's very tight-knit because they're all traveling together in the same kind of caravan, multiple buses or vans or whatever you're traveling in, and you're hanging out all the time because you all have the same schedules. So anyway, after that tour ended, we all went our separate ways. I went with our cast to do other tours. Volbeat went on to do their own tours. I didn't see them for about a year. But a friend of mine, Jeff Good, he became Volbeat's tour manager that following year. He married a girl named Tiffany Shea, who I played drums with in 2002. This is 8 years prior.
Wow.
Hence the connection. I mean, that's kind of where it came from in a nutshell. Even
A
the
lot of word of
recommendation-
mouth and just
Right. And if you want to go back even further than that, I would have never met Tiffany if I wasn't playing for Katrin. Because if I didn't take that Katrin gig, I wouldn't have been in a club in Boston playing a show, and I wouldn't have stayed after the show and talked to this girl named Tiffany. And then that whole thing started rolling where I ended up playing for Tiffany.
So part of this is you gotta be able to schmooze a little bit. You gotta be able to hang.
Yeah, because if you
And
can play your
obviously-
gig and just go home and not
Anyone
talk
can
to
do that,
anybody,
yeah.
Right.
But-
So that's one part of it. The other part of it is that if you come off as a total dick, and they say you probably never get. Nobody ever remembers your name. You never.
And that was the other thing too. Like when I got recommended for the Volbeat gig, they remembered who I was from that tour, even though it had been a year and a half. They had remembered it because we all hung out. Because I didn't just do the gig and then get back on the bus and not talk to anybody. You went and you hung out and you had a drink and schmoozed with everyone.
So you meet them. So after all this, they call you a year and a half later.
A year and a half later, I wasn't even offered the gig like hey, come and Drumtech. It was more like, listen, I think that the Drumtech's getting fired. The guitar player's leaving the band. The Drumtech's getting fired. They're going to start a new tour in 2012. Do you want me to put your name in? And I was back in LA. Our cast was done. We had done a year together. They were done. I was actually, which is kind of another story, I was teching for Chad Saliga, the drummer from Breaking Benjamin. From Breaking Benjamin.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I was teching for him
that, yeah.
because he was playing with our cast at the time. So I did a bunch of tours with that guy. And that's another story. He was great. He was a great guy, great drummer.
Yeah.
But totally different than the guy I work for now.
We'll dedicate another podcast to that. I'm
Yeah,
always
yeah,
just
yeah.
fascinated with the stories you come back with for Volbeat, so that's why I wanted to focus on
Well,
this.
yeah, so where was I in this? So the 2012 tour was going to be Gigantour with Megadeth, Motorhead, The Coil,
yeah.
and Volbeat. So that was my first tour with them. And I had never met any of those bigger bands, so I was getting to meet all these bands that you grow up with, Megadeth and Motorhead. I wasn't huge fans of that music, but obviously you know who they are. Went out and did 6 weeks, and they were going to do another run after that with a different band. I can't remember who we went out with after that, but I got asked to come back, so I did another. You do these trial runs, so you do like 6 weeks at a time to see how it goes. If things go well, they keep you on.
6
If they
weeks
don't,
is like the equivalent of a first date or something.
yeah,
like
kind
that.
of, yeah. And I mean, honestly, I've seen guys come into this crew, and they'll last 2 shows and they send them home because it just doesn't work out for one reason or another, whether it's a personality clash or it's partying too much, or you just can't do your gig.
Yeah.
Because some people do get hired bullshitting their way in, and then they get there and they can't do their gig.
They don't know what they're doing.
Right. And then on the other hand, there's guys that know their shit really well, but they're fucking assholes, and you don't want to work with them. So if you come into a tight-knit crew as the outsider and you're an asshole, you're not going to last very long. We've had a few guys like that too. So
Lord of the Flies, Mutiny.
yeah, right, exactly. So I did 3 runs with them in 2012, and the last show I did with them was August. It was a one-off. They were doing Wacken Festival, which is the biggest metal festival in Germany.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
In Europe, actually. It's the biggest metal festival. It's like 80,000 people. And I had never been to Europe.
Ready to do Haas.
Yeah, right. Whatever that means. What does that mean?
I don't know. I just know, what was that? Rammstein.
Oh, Rammstein. We've done a couple shows with them, too.
I mean, I've been to Germany for, personal
I love
travel and
Germany.
for work.
I think Germany's great.
The only other word I ever learned was Scheiße.
So we go do that show, and after that show was done, we all went back to Michael's house, the singer, and we had some drinks. We were all talking about stuff, and I was in the kitchen with Michael. And I remember this, and Michael kind of pulled me aside and said, we're looking for guys to be on the core crew, which means you'll go worldwide with us. There's usually 12 people or 10 or 12 people that no matter what we do, you guys are involved with it. Do you want to be one of those guys? And I was having a great fucking time, man. It was my first time, being out there in the world like that. And
traveling
and seeing things I'd never seen, and getting to do it with drums. So when I'm not playing the fucking show, I'm sound checking, I'm dealing with drums every day, learning a lot from
Doing
other
the craft,
techs. And just loving every minute of it. So I said, "Fuck yeah, well, I'll do that." I mean, I was in LA being a stagehand, and that was my main gig when I moved to LA, just to keep myself afloat, was going to be a stagehand.
You were playing out there too.
And I was playing, but it was
80-20 rule. 80% of your income was coming from
I was
brickwork.
involved in music because I was working at all the arenas, helping people set up gear. But at the same time, that was making me more money than it was me playing in my band from San Diego. So
you had some experience already. You had already done some drum teching.
Right, I had already done some crew stuff. Yeah.
And you're a fantastic drum player. Yeah, we know. We know that.
Well, we know you have a huge attention to detail, and certainly John Larson's kit is,
and that's part of it. Yeah.
Is nothing that you have to be very attentive to every
It's a big
detail,
kit,
because he
it's a big
plays
kit.
a very big drum set.
Yeah, it's not
he
like
is
something
borderline
I would
Neil Peart.
He's a Nico fan. He's an Iron Maiden.
Seven toms, a 2 bass, eight toms, 2
8
bass
toms,
drums.
2 bass drums,
No.
snare drum, 6 crashes, 2 chinas, 2 hi-hats, a ride, and a bell.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, even if that was my own kit, I'd probably never set it up the same way twice.
Right.
You have to do it night in and night out.
You do.
That's super
You do.
challenging.
Yeah.
No.
You get used to it, I guess. It took me a while, though.
Did you find your background, your experience with studio recording stuff, did that help you a lot in this gig? There's some miking stuff. There's a lot of
with these guys, I learned more because their miking techniques. Our front of house guy likes to internally mic the drums, and I had never done that before.
Right, so that was new to you.
That was new to me, and especially when building John's US kit, we did that in 13. So a year later, I built it from the shells up, and I had to install all the internal miking systems, and it was a learning curve. I mean, I hadn't done that before.
So when you say build it from the ground up, meaning...
I went to Pearl,
Yeah.
and they gave me all the parts, and the shells, and the lug cases were on the shells.
Yeah.
But, I obviously had to rehead everything.
Hardware.
Hardware
Heads.
was all packaged
in
how you buy it in the store. So you got to unpackage every piece of hardware. And like you said, you were talking about a gigantic kit. He's got a rack, and he's got booms for everything. You got tom arms. It's a lot of gear that you got to take. The packaging alone,
Yeah.
So
Bobbleheads.
A lot of
bobbleheads.
Yeah, he likes his bobbleheads. That's a whole other thing.
So that's another whole thing.
But yeah, it's time consuming, and I learned a lot especially with the miking systems, because I hadn't done a lot of that before. The hardware, I lucked out that he plays Pearl, because I've been a Pearl player forever, and so I know that gear pretty well, and it was easier for me, I think, going to do that. Whereas sometimes I go sub for somebody and they're using Tamo, or they're using Yamaha, or they're using something else, and it's all generally the same, but as you guys know, the tom holders are different, and
There's
piping
reasons why
doesn't fit a
everyone
certain
buys
way
everything,
that maybe Pearl does, or this brand does, or whatever. So you gotta shift stuff around. Like we did this show in South America. We were flying in to do one show, and
I remember you telling me about
and
this
they couldn't supply any gear for us down there, so we couldn't fly with any drums. So we rented everything, and they didn't have a rack. So I was stuck with stands for everything that John plays, and the kit was the same size.
Wow.
We didn't get rid of. I think the only thing we got rid of was, at the time, he only had 7 toms instead of 8. So we got rid of the first 2 above his hi-hat just to make room and not have to worry about anything. And like I said, we were only doing one gig. We were fly day. So we did one show. It wasn't that big a deal. He's pretty flexible when it comes to that. If I have to get rid of a couple toms and a couple cymbals, he's fine. But still, It's all stands. You know, you got legs you got to try to intertwine, and like you got to try to use different clamps to clamp this here and clamp
So
this
that's
there.
the advantage of the cage, is that you eliminate all that
Yeah,
stuff.
you eliminate all that stuff.
Especially if you have a giant kit like
Yeah,
that.
it's brilliant for that.
That's big.
Not to mention the footprint stays the same.
Yeah.
Easier
Right.
than
right.
it does with stands. You know?
So,
Bye. Good to see you.
Bye. Happy
Happy Valentine's Day. Thanks.
Happy
We will.
Valentine's
Take care.
Day.
Bye.
so again, kind of getting back to what you just mentioned, you know, you go to Pearl in 2013, get
Yeah.
his kit, build his kit from
Yeah.
the shells up.
Yeah.
Now you're on the road with him.
Yeah.
You meet different challenges where you may not have the same gear, you're renting gear.
Right.
So kind of sounds like what you're telling me is beyond setting up and breaking down, you know, you got to make sure that that drum set is reheaded for every show. You got to make sure that, you know, what happens if John, for instance, breaks cymbals and breaks his backups? How do you coordinate traveling from date to date and making sure that you have double, triple, or have Pearl or Zildjian or whoever is using on the phone and getting that gear there? That's got to be a huge responsibility.
Well, yeah, it is, and it does go beyond, like you said, beyond the setup and dealing with rental gear. You are the guy that you're dealing with, your production manager that covers the tour, relaying information to him, giving him a list of what you need, so he can contact backline companies to make sure you get what you need, or as close to what you need as they can provide.
Right.
And sometimes they don't have Pearl stuff, and sometimes Pearl can't supply in that country.
Right.
And sometimes stuff might not even get there if they're shipping it from somewhere. So you try to rely more on the backline companies that are local,
Right.
that are driving the gear there rather than having to ship or fly some stuff there.
What about like heads? Like you
I
have
have
a
to
schedule.
order all the heads.
But you see,
So
you
I
got a
look at
schedule of
the-
shows, and you know you got to rehead every other show
Right, I
or
know how
whatever.
many shows it takes and all that.
So roughly, and then you will probably
And I try to order more than that.
right.
Right.
You know, I
So
try to
you-
order
so
more
you-
than I
little
need,
bit
so
of
I
a
have a
safety
backup.
factor.
Right, because you know he never really breaks the heads, but on the off chance that he does, I want to have a backup. You know, maybe I reheaded the whole kit that day. I better still have a backup for everything.
Right. So you
know,
got to basically prepare for anything.
You have to. You do a lot
lot
of
of fixing.
homework
You do a lot of
before
fixing.
you leave for tour too.
So you do a lot of repair work too. You have a toolkit, and you're repairing a
Yeah,
lot
absolutely.
of stuff.
Yeah, I do, and luckily, I mean, if you know the gear enough and it's pretty new gear, you don't run into that many problems. But when you're dealing with rental gear, you never know.
Right.
So yeah, you have to be prepared. You got to bring a toolkit with the essentials, whatever the essentials might be for that kit and that player, because maybe he's heavy-footed, and might break a spring or a chain or something on the pedal, or maybe he's just constantly hitting his cymbal one way instead of twisting his wrist when he hits it. Might crack cymbals more than the other guy, or drum heads, depending. But so you kind of get to know your player, and it takes a while, like I said, to get to know their playing style and their personality, and that just comes with time.
Right.
It's nothing you can guess.
So you're from a work perspective, you're learning the nuances of his playing, what he needs.
Right.
But do you get to build a lot of like personal bonding while you guys are on the road in between
we have a lot
like
of
the
downtime.
work relationship
Sure.
side?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we have a lot of downtime. John's 13 days older than me, so we're very close in age.
Okay.
And we have a lot of the same likes as far as movies, and we like collectibles and record shopping and things like that. So days off, we might go out together, or even just go to a movie and hang out.
And
or
those
go
are the
get
big
dinner.
things that make a difference on, like, again, 8 years with the same band. Like,
Right.
he's not going to want to, he could have a guy, probably, you're the best, but he couldn't, maybe a guy that's close second, but if the personal relationship, aside from the business side, is not there, he's not going to want to.
Right. Well, that goes back to getting along with people and your personality. And if you're an asshole, nobody wants to work with you, especially when you're working for the artist. If you're a lighting guy, it's a little different.
What's that?
If you're a lighting guy, it's a little different. If you're a lighting tech, the lighting designer is the core crew guy, and then everybody under him are hired hands just for that tour. The band doesn't know who those people are half the time, So there's not really doesn't really have to be a bond between those people,
Right.
you know. But when you're dealing directly with the artist, you're working for the guitar player, you're working for the drummer or whatever. There should be some kind of camaraderie because you have to build some kind of trust,
Right.
you know,
No,
with that
absolutely.
person.
So I would think if I'm like, say I'm the artist, I'm the drummer, and I got a drum tech or any kind of tech that I have all the confidence in the world in, then my playing's gonna be so much better when I show up. All my stuff set up consistently, the same every night. Everything sounds the same every night, and I know that I'm not gonna get up there and go, what the hell? I'm not worried about stuff breaking.
Right.
I'm not worried about stuff being out of tune.
You just feel at home.
Just like that stuff. That part of the show is off your plate altogether.
I mean,
And,
so much so that even when they record new albums, they fly you wherever they're recording, and you're setting up in the studio too. I mean, that's
This year I did that.
yeah,
for
that's
sure. This year I
amazing.
did that.
I mean, that's a true testament to, you know, perfecting your craft in this line of work.
Yeah, I mean, I try to do the best I can with what I know, and you know, if it flies, it flies. Some artists are harder than more difficult than others, and
But all that comes from
impress
the business side of being on the road,
sure,
hanging out together, buying records, going to movies, and then I think what probably helps you make the go-to guy for him is it's the combination of all those things.
Right.
So it's not only like
right,
you don't just get to know like a robotic way of setting up his drum set.
Right.
You understand an artistic way to set his drum set up.
right,
You know,
right. And
have
I
you
can give
ever-
him suggestions, and he's open to it as
Yeah.
well because we've developed that relationship. And if there's changes I think he should make, or he might even come to me, hey, you know, when I play like this, my shoulder hurts. When I play like this, my wrist hurts or something. And so I'll watch him that night while he plays, and I might have a suggestion about moving something a little differently. Maybe something needs to be higher, maybe something needs to be lower.
Ergonomic. Work on some ergonomic
Right.
stuff.
So we work together on that stuff too, and he does come to me with those kinds of things, which he should.
Right.
Because if he just keeps playing like that and keeps hurting himself, he's not going to be playing very long. You know, so he's got to tell somebody.
He's not
about
going to
it.
enjoy it.
Right.
So you're kind of what? So not to throw sports into this. Tom Brady's guy there. There's always a controversy around
Guerrero.
Guerrero. You're kind of the Guerrero for John Larson.
The Alex Guerrero.
You're the guy that knows him so well to like constantly be improving his play.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. You sit behind somebody and watch them play for 8 years, or 7 years. This is my 8th year. You get to know pretty quick, like
That's
what
amazing.
their motions are and what they're going to do, and they're going to play this fill here. They're going to, because also John's a very consistent player, and what you're going to get with John. He's not trying any far out stuff unless he's done it at rehearsals.
Yeah.
He's not going off the map because he's holding it down for the singer.
Right.
So if he starts changing things, it's going to screw them up too.
Yeah.
So he's very consistent.
Then the band will break up.
Yeah, right. He's very
So
consistent.
all that pressure's on you.
Everything's got to
And
be
it
the
comes
same.
back to you though, right?
Everything's got to be the same.
If he doesn't feel at home behind that kid,
Right.
he's not going to be able to.
And I'll
again,
know if he does it because he'll look at me, or he'll motion to something, or he'll pull me after a song. He'll pull me over and say, something's happening here. I don't know. We need to raise this up, or I don't know. The angle of the tom's not right, or something.
Yeah.
So
have you ever had to do that like
yeah.
during a show?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, in fact, especially the first couple of years, because positioning his two toms up top over his hi-hat are the hardest ones to get exactly right, because he's having to reach to play those anyway, so they got to be perfect.
Yeah.
And it's really hard, even if you're measuring and whatever, it's really hard to get them exact. And when he sits down, he might monkey with something a little bit. That's fine. But the first couple of years, at least the first couple of runs, there were a couple times I had to go up and readjust a height, or it might be too far away from him or too close to him or something like that. And so I'd have to do it during the show. You just got to do what you got to do.
No.
So,
I mean, I think
that's how you learn.
It's an unsung thing. Like, I'm trying to think back to however many bands I've seen over the years. Like, I don't really think I've seen too often where, once it's set up, that's it.
Yeah.
But I think that's a good team ethic.
Mechanical things break too. So it's going to happen. You got to fix something during the show.
What's the craziest thing that's happened during a show that was like, oh my god, I fixed this, I got to reposition this, or
Gear-wise? Like gear? His hi-hat stand. We were in London, I think. Yeah, at the O2 Arena, which is a super famous club venue that all the big names have played. And I think it was their first time there. It might have been their first time there. And they were doing a show, and John's foot went to the floor on the hi-hat. And I thought, like, the rod came undone. On the screw
Because there's a nut in there that holds the two rods
Or
together.
the clutch came
the clutch came loose or whatever, But it wasn't coming back up. It was the thing. So
there's a
a
nut
piece
that
had
connects those
broken
two
where the
rods,
chain
yeah.
connects. Something had broken, so I couldn't fix it. So I had to replace it.
I'll do one more, please.
So having to replace the whole hi-hat stand.
While he's playing?
No, in between songs, luckily.
Well, you have a backup? Is that
I have
what
a
you're
backup
saying?
hi-hat stand, yes.
Do you have a backup of all hardware?
Anything that I have at least one of it.
That has high use. Maybe,
Yeah, hi-hat stands, pedals, any pedals.
Oh, nice.
Any pedals, cymbals. I got one of every type he uses.
One extra of every type?
One extra type of
Yeah.
every type.
Couldn't even afford that.
Heads, of
He has like
course.
8 cymbals.
Yeah, right. I know.
And what cymbals does he play? Feisty.
Yeah, he's got a mixture of Peisty cymbals between the signatures, the 2002s,
Wow.
the 20 customs, which they don't make anymore.
I'm a working class drummer. I can't afford Feisty.
I can't either. So,
But go on. Sorry.
I love him. I'm a big fan.
so we're in London. And
From him, he turned me on to Python.
yeah, they're very good. I had never used Peisty before I worked for him.
I had one
And I've
once,
grown to love them.
and it was great.
I've grown to love them.
But I just couldn't afford
They're
to
very
do it
good.
again.
Yeah, they're really good cymbals. And they've been great to John, too.
Yeah.
And every time I call his rep up, because that's the other thing, he doesn't deal with his reps unless he's doing
You gotta
an
deal with all
interview.
that
I deal
stuff.
with all that.
You do
Yeah.
the reps for Pearl.
For Pearl,
Peisty,
Peisty,
and
Evans Promark, yeah. So John will go and do their interviews and do, videos for them or whatever, but
he
as far as
doesn't have
ordering stuff, he has
Yeah.
nothing to do with that.
Well, again, that goes back to like what
to
it
the
takes to be a
tech.
good drum tech. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So the London story is he broke his hi-hat stand. So there was a little bit of a gap in between. We're looking at the set list, like when can I change it out? And he's like, after the next song. Very cool.
So in the meantime, he's just not using
He's
the
playing
hi-hat?
on it close.
Yeah.
He's playing on it close. Okay. Yeah.
So
No one in the crowd knows.
nah, they don't fucking know. So he stops. He jumps off the riser. I jump up there, and now we have a microphone.
You started doing a drum solo, which was weird.
Right.
You shouldn't have done. You probably shouldn't have done
I wanted to
that.
see what was still working.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
And
What
Michael's
else
trying
could
to
I-
stop there and I look behind him like, what the fuck's going on?
Pete's like, Moby Dick, here we go. One,
Yeah.
two, three,
1, 2,
four.
3, 4. So anyway, I jump up there, and to get this high, you got to figure, okay, he's a double bass player. There's no legs on this hi-hat stand. It's clamped to his bass drum. So you have to clamp it for the
Oh,
bass
it's
drum.
clamped to his bass drum. Okay.
And he has another clamp on it with a microphone.
Okay, so you're
You
gonna
just got to
disconnect
take
that.
that off.
Right.
So our Guitar Tech 2 ran over, and I'm throwing stuff at him. Grabbing the hi-hat stand, I had to take the cymbals off. Obviously, I kept the clutch
Now,
on.
did you contact? Does two know what's going on at this point?
He could
Have
see,
you-
because
he
we're
could
close.
see.
We're in
Okay.
close proximity.
Okay.
He could
Okay.
see. So he ran over
Okay.
to help. John's sitting behind me, so I'm throwing stuff to them. He hands me the newsstand.
Show's still going on.
No, Michael's talking to the crowd.
Right.
So show's still going on. He's talking to the crowd and trying to get it done before he finishes.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't even know what's going on.
He doesn't know what's going
no
on.
idea.
He's gonna count the next song off.
Right, yeah, pretty much. So
and
I'm trying to
you're
do
gonna
it
be
as
up there.
fast as I can. I'm panicking, like trying to get as
Sweat
fast
bullets.
as I can. And then I hear Michael say, so do you guys like Judas Priest? And I'm like, oh shit, he's gonna start the song. Because they do a medley. Back then they did. They do a medley of cover songs. So the first one was Judas Priest.
Living After Midnight.
No.
Breaking the Law?
Yeah. So
Final
Rob,
Echo does that song. Come see us. Final Echo.
Nice.
Facebook.
Shameless
look us up.
plug. I like that.
I like that. That's good.
I like that.
Rob, the guitar player, runs over to Michael and taps him on the shoulder. No. And Michael looks at him and he points. And Michael turns around. He goes, oh, hey, Pete. He goes, hey, maybe Pete knows this song. Like that. And I'm still fixing shit. And I'm like, dude. So I'm pointing at him. I'm like, 1 minute. And I'm fixing. I'm looking back at John. Michael turns his back to the audience. And he goes, yeah, that's Pete, our drum tech. Let's hear it for Pete. Pete. So he's got the whole crowd yelling, Pete, while I'm trying to fix something. That's
awesome.
Yeah. So
Hands turned into
I'm
jello.
back.
No,
I'm like,
no
oh.
pressure. The whole show. The whole show.
So So Michael's sitting there
Do you have a
with his
recording of
arms
this?
crossed.
Do you have a recording of this?
It's on YouTube.
It's on YouTube?
I don't have a recording of it. A fan recorded it.
Oh.
But I think they only caught it when I started playing because I actually had to play.
Oh, you played?
I had to fucking play.
You played at the O2 Arena?
Yeah.
You
Wow.
played that
So-
song?
No, listen to the story. This is what's funny about it. So Michael's standing there staring at me,
With his arms folded.
and the crowd's behind him. It's a sold-out crowd.
Pete.
Chanting my name, right? So I'm trying to get the wire back in, and I'm looking back at John, and I'm fixing stuff, and then I look back at him, and he goes, "You're already up there. Go ahead, play it."
That's amazing.
So I'm like, "All right." So I get everything done, and I count it off 1, 2 on the hi-hat, and I jump into the beat. Nobody starts playing.
Oh, they were
It's just me. So I'm sitting there, and I'm going, "Dude, shakush, shakush, kukash, shakuka," right? And so then Michael comes in with this just nothing to do with the Judas Priest song whatsoever.
You
He's
must
just
have been
jamming.
so scared.
He's just jamming. So I'm playing along. Rob was tuning.
Yeah.
Rob comes over. He starts the Judas Priest tune while Michael's doing a completely different rhythm. He starts bow now 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 now, and you can see all that on YouTube.
Yeah.
Bow now 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 now, and the bass player's coming along, and I'm playing, and I'm like, Michael's not playing this song, dude. What's going on? So then he's looking at Michael like, what are you doing? And Michael's looking at him like, what are you doing? And finally, that's like maybe 30 seconds. Felt like a lifetime. Michael lifts his guitar head and goes like this to signal, and we stop, and that's it. I jumped off that fucking riser so fast. Yeah, and gave the sticks back to John, and John got up there, and then they did it for real.
Yeah.
After that, you know.
So they did that on purpose, or they just?
I think Michael did it on purpose. Michael's a prankster. Michael's a big prankster. Yeah.
But here's the thing.
So he
you
will
played
put
at
you
the
on the
O2
spot.
Arena, man.
I did.
Yeah.
My 30 seconds of fame.
Yeah.
That's
Hey.
awesome.
Playing in front of Volbeat crowd, right? Yeah. But you know, that was during a show. I mean, me and Tu and Jerry have to sound check all the instruments in front of the audience a lot of times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes it's behind a kabuki backdrop that covers the stage, so the audience doesn't see you. But a lot of times, and more times than not, it's wide open. I mean, the audience is there,
Very naked to
and they're
the,
just hearing whatever jam we decide to pull out for the front of house guy. And that's the thing too. You know, you were mentioning how you learn the idiosyncrasies of the person you're working for and the playing style and things like that. And you kind of have to. You can't get up there and play like you play, because that's not what the front of house guy's going to hear
Right.
at the show. He wants to hear what John would do. You know. So you might, because I was not much of a double bass player before I joined these guys.
Yeah, now
When have
got
you
some
ever known me to really play double bass?
Right, now you got a little bit of double
Now
bass
I know-
shots.
I-
Well,
I
you
know
had
second.
to.
You were
I had
second
to.
runner-up in the Slayer new drum.
Right,
tryouts, right? I
after
remember that
Lombardo,
back.
yeah, right.
Many years back.
Yeah, it sure
Dave
was.
Lombardo,
Sure
and then
was, yeah,
the
Lombardo.
next person in
gonna
line
be, yeah.
was Pete Abdou.
So
Right, exactly.
I learned a lot because I had to,
Right.
and I had to be able to play those bass drums kind of like John would. He's a bigger guy than I am, and he hits them a lot harder than I do. But I've tried to at least maintain close to the level of playing that he plays, volume-wise especially, because that's the big difference for front of house guys. Is if he has to pull back the faders because all of a sudden the artist is up there,
Right.
why even sound check?
Right.
If he's got to monkey with something a little bit, it's not a big deal. But you want to get a true representation of what the show's going to be like.
Right.
Because the band doesn't come out and sound check all the time.
Right.
They rarely do, unless they're doing something new, or if it's somewhere they've never been, or if it's rental gear.
Right.
And they're in a foreign
I think that's
country.
why they coined the term rock stardom. You
Yeah.
just show up and play.
Right. Yeah. show
Everyone
them
else
play.
makes sure you are ready to go. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So you've been doing Drumtech for over 10 years now?
Yeah. Just over 10. Yeah.
Yeah. What's your favorite thing about it?
Yeah. I'll have one of those. Sorry, that was
do,
my
Do you
fear.
get
Fear of choice.
do you
Oh,
ever
one
get
of
to
those.
enjoy the luxuries of maybe free gear, or is it
You know
working
what?
with the
I like-
artist?
Travel, or
I like-
the hang, or the...
I can't say I like the travel, like the airports and the.
No,
Yeah.
but seeing
I like
different-
bus way more than airports, but seeing, I've been to 49 of the 50 states just from being on tour.
Wow. What state have you been to?
Hawaii, probably wouldn't have gone to.
Right.
I don't know that I ever would have gone to Poland. Like
I went to
Hawaii.
Poland on holiday once.
What'd you do? Yeah.
I was only supposed to be in the country for one night. I ended up staying for 3 nights because What'd you say? The women of Poland.
Or Astoria. You ever been to Astoria?
No.
I didn't even know Astoria existed. So, I mean, I don't know.
Is
All
it
these places
Astoria
that-
in New York?
No, Astoria. It's
The country.
A country.
Oh.
Where is that?
In Europe somewhere.
Yeah,
Yeah, we played one
This
show.
podcast
Yeah.
brought to you by Stay in School. Be cool.
Learn your geography, which I clearly didn't because I had no idea. But, you know, yeah, definitely, yeah, I mean, the travel, but you know what else is great about it is I'm seeing so many bands I probably never would have seen.
Right,
That I've
bam.
maybe some of them that I've even wanted to see live.
Get to meet band
Right,
members.
yeah, and you get to meet these people, like Iron Maiden. Okay? I was a huge Iron Maiden fan as a kid.
Nico.
Oh, yeah,
And-
Nico.
You know, you get to meet them sometimes, depending where you're at. We happened to go to a show, me and John, when we were in Denmark. During
John's a
break.
big Nico fan.
John's a big Nico fan.
Yeah.
We went and
Who is
Rob, the guitar player, used to play in Anthrax, and Anthrax was playing the same show as
Oh,
the
that's
Iron
right,
Maiden.
yeah.
So Rob went and sat in for a song, and we all went to the show.
Nice.
And so we were backstage, and me and I
Eating
think
the deli
drummer, me and the drummer for Anthrax were sitting there outside Nico's warm-up room, listening to him warm up, and we're like giddy little schoolgirls. You know, you are famous, Sean.
Do you want to say a few words, Sean? Sean, do you want to get in here and say a few words? Do you want to say a few words? Introduce yourself.
I've already plugged the restaurant.
Plugged it many times.
Many times.
Plugged the restaurant many times.
All right. Well, these guys are always down at East Street Alehouse, always talking about everything that they do. Pete's a fantastic drummer.
He gets to hear all about it.
Yeah, I get to hear it, even though I don't understand it. But these guys are awesome, so you should definitely check out this podcast and listen to what these guys are talking about. They know their stuff.
Come down to East Street.
Yeah, come down to East
Down
Street.
to East Street. We're here on Thursdays. Come down and see us.
Yeah.
Good beers, good times, good wings. East Street Alehouse, North Attleboro, Massachusetts.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Probably the best beer selection in southeastern Massachusetts. On tap. Constantly rotating. We also have a Stout Fest coming up if anybody likes stout, starting February 21st.
Stout and Drumming Festival?
We could have a drumming festival. I don't know if the neighbors around town would like it, but we'll
They're gonna love it.
we'll soundproof the bar for you.
Yeah, there we go.
But yeah, Stout Fest, we're probably about 12 barrel-aged featured stouts. Some of the stuff you can't find anymore. Should be an interesting. February 21st goes for a week long or until everything kicks.
Sweet.
We'll be broadcasting live here from East
We'll
Street
be here.
Yeah, they'll be here. Yeah,
Every night, every day of the week.
February 21st is a Thursday,
It's a Thursday. So we're gonna kick it off.
so they'll kick off Stout Fest with
Kickoff
this
night.
the podcast.
Awesome.
We're gonna be here every day for the South Fest.
Definitely tune in for that.
It's a good festival. You should come down.
Alright.
It's the best. It's the best.
And we're back.
And Butchie is drunk on wings and beer at the East Street Alehouse. Good time.
Yeah.
So you told us, some of the best things about being a drum tech.
What are some of the worst things?
Exactly.
Ah, shit.
Yeah.
The good things definitely outweigh the bad things. There's always hassles with
Loading in and out.
loading in and out. The way, the venues they book sometimes aren't equipped to handle the show we're bringing in. So it's always a challenge to find the right space for the size drum set John plays.
Yeah.
Even though he has the same amount of space every time, sometimes the stages don't really accommodate the entire show.
Right.
Because if you have opening bands, you got to make space for them. All that stuff. So the things I hate about it, at least one thing that I can recall.
That's the most unpredictable thing. You don't know much about when you show up for a venue.
Yeah,
you don't know about the loading, how you're gonna load in,
But
the size of the stage. Stuff
some
like
of that, sometimes even we go to venues and there's big construction outside, so we don't even know how we're getting in the door.
Yeah, you said the show they tore up
Yeah,
the
and
street
we had played that venue
they blocked
before, so
off
we're
the
like,
street.
we're remembering going to that venue. And so I guess, some of the horror load-ins are like the worst things. And not even just the logistics of loading it, but sometimes we'll show up, the gigs are booked too close together where we got to get to the next venue like now, and we just got out of that gig.
Right.
So we get to the next venue at 3 a.m, and we're headlining a festival, so they want us to set up at 4 a.m. Like, why are we here when it's dark, 4 a.m?
Exhausted.
Yeah,
whatever.
setting up our gear just to leave it until that next day's
Night,
night
yeah.
at midnight the next day. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
that's what
I'll
we
show up 3 hours before the fucking show and set up.
Right,
I don't
right.
need to be there at 4 in the morning.
Right, yeah,
So that stuff's a drag because you're not just working 40 hours a week when
Right.
you're doing this. You're on the clock from sometimes 4 a.m., more times 7 or 8 a.m. until the show's over,
Yeah.
which is after midnight that night. You do get time in there. Obviously, you're not doing stuff, so you take advantage of going to your bunk and sleeping and whatever you can do.
Yeah.
But you're on the clock. Like, you got your radio on, even if you're in your bunk. You got your radio on.
Yeah.
If somebody needs you, they got to call you, and you know. The logistics of load-ins and setups, and are sometimes a little hairy, and that's probably my least favorite.
Yeah.
But that one I was talking about that you had mentioned, Butchie, was we showed up and we had to park the truck across the street from the venue. The entire street was one lane, normally 2 lanes. We're down to 1 lane because of construction right in front of the club. Plus, we had fans lined up on the sidewalk before we even got there to load in. So they're blocking the front door. We had to go from the truck with all the gear with stagehands, push it down the street, wait for the light across the street.
Then up a hill.
The big stuff had to go up this huge hill through a side door. The other
geez.
stuff had to go by the fans through the front door into an elevator, up 2 floors, out the elevator. It took a long time. Way
Sounds
longer
like that
than it
story
should.
my dad told me when he used to have to walk uphill to school and walk
And
uphill back to the
both
house.
ways in the
Yeah.
snow.
both ways.
Yeah, both ways in the
Just
snow.
kidding. Yeah.
Barefoot in the snow.
We couldn't afford shoes.
But you know,
Right.
it's not even just the fact it was a long push to get the stuff there. You got people everywhere, so you got to keep an eye on stuff.
Yeah.
And there's only so many crew guys,
Right.
so we
12
got a
core
couple
guys,
right?
right?
We got a couple guys inside,
So is that a case
couple
where
guys outside.
so was it nerve wracking like that, like the load in, especially the load in, because you got to. Yeah, but you got more time. Like there's no demands on time wise, like there, right?
You would think so.
Right. So
You
like,
would think so.
No, it's not.
Load-in's
'Cause I
gotta
would
be-
think load in because
Butch.
you gotta be on time to get the show ready.
Loadout's
and
got to be quicker.
Butchie.
Loadouts to be quicker.
It's like being married. You never,
I wouldn't know
never-
what that's
yeah,
like.
Never fast enough, never done soon enough, never,
Speaking of being married, happy Valentine's Day,
Happy
everybody.
Valentine's Day, everybody.
Day to all those lovers out there.
Yeah. We're spending our Valentine's Day for you.
I love my wife. Eventually I'll make it home, I swear.
Yep.
So,
Loadouts have to be quicker.
yeah.
Really?
Yeah, and they generally are because there's no
Are,
detail.
yeah.
There's no
'Cause you're
detail.
there's not like the precision of setting
Right,
everything
and you're
in.
not worried about
Break it
whether
down
something
and
works
move,
or
yeah.
anything like that. You're trying to just get it out of there.
So,
Oh,
let
I
me
would
ask
think
you
the
this.
load in would be like trying to get everything set.
Well, I mean, that depends.
Yeah.
If you're there on time, you have from
Right.
8 in the morning till sound check at 3.
Right, so
Or
you have a
sound
lot
check
of
at
time,
4,
right.
right? But if you show up in traffic and you're late for the load in,
Right.
and you only have 2 hours, then yeah, your scrap goes on for sure.
Now, now you've had the experience to fill in drum teching for other
Yeah.
bands.
Yeah.
What's that like when you fill in for another band? You're not familiar with their gear, not familiar with that drummer, don't have a lot of.
In a way, it's more pressure, but in a way, it's not, because you're only there for that one gig.
It's like a one.
Sometimes.
It's like a one night
Sometimes
stand.
it's a one night stand, but when I
Nothing to prove.
I filled in for a guy who got hurt, Terry, who got hurt. He was with Hailstorm. This was in 2015, and I did 9 shows with those guys. So that was more than just one gig.
Oh yeah.
Awesome guy.
And RJ was awesome.
Yeah,
RJ was
awesome
great,
drummer.
but completely different than John.
Yeah.
Off the rails all the time, hyper. He was out there while I was building his kit, but
What are you doing there, Pete? What's that, Pete? What are you doing?
exactly.
What are you doing?
And I was
what are you doing? What are
warned.
you doing?
And I was warned by his tech when he asked me to do the gig. I was warned by his tech. He said, "Listen, you got to triple check RJ's kit for things coming loose, because when you're done, he's going to come out there when you're not there, and he's going to change something." That's just that's the way he is. He'll get up there and he might play something or air drum over it and be like, "Nah, I'm going to change this. Nah, let's try this here." And he won't tighten it back up the way you would tighten it.
Right.
So you got to go, you got to go and do that stuff. But then there's the one-offs. That's a little more pressure. There's the one-offs where you're not responsible. I mean, you're responsible, but you're not completely responsible.
Right.
If something goes wrong, something goes wrong.
Well,
It's
your
not
reputation's
that
on the
bad.
line.
Yeah,
But
right.
yeah.
It is. But if it's a bad thing, obviously.
Right.
But little mistakes here and there, or you not knowing exactly where something goes, or the exact height to something, the exact distance something's supposed
But
to be
they're kind of
at.
forgiving, knowing
Yeah,
that
it's
you're-
more forgiving because you're not the usual guy. You know, it's a little more forgiving. I've been in a few situations where it's been a little more responsibility than I would have liked to, but I took the gig, so I make it happen.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I mean, hey, everyone's.
But every
work.
drummer's different,
Yeah.
man. Every drummer's different. You got to kind of learn their style on the spot, almost. And
Right.
you try to do your research before you get to the gig. You get online. Now with the information online, you can research anybody.
Yeah, I mean, Wikipedia
know.
shows like people's drum layouts
Right,
and what they
right.
do.
Especially one-offs, man. You know,
Yeah.
if the tech doesn't have time to get you the specs, there's a lot of techs do that. And pretty much every gig I've had the luxury of having the other tech give me pointers or let me know what's going on with this, what's going on with that. So I've been lucky with that. I haven't gone in blind to any of them yet. And I don't think you can really go in blind anymore because, like you said, of the internet. You know,
Right.
you can get on there and see what their setups are, and you can watch videos, see how they play, and all that stuff.
Yeah,
If
study
you do
it.
your
Yeah,
research,
yeah.
you're doing your homework. Yeah.
As this
Wanna be on that
question is
list,
asked
yeah.
in most other drum podcasts, but not in this perspective.
Yeah.
If you could drum tech for any drummer,
Yeah.
living or dead, who would it be?
That's a no-brainer for me. And you know what? My buddy's actually doing it.
No,
My buddy's
Kenny
actually
Arnold.
doing it. Yeah, Kenny Arnold, for sure.
Kenny Arnold. That's
Yeah,
right. You always talk
But
so
you know what?
highly about him. You
And,
love
and
him.
I got a text from a buddy of mine who was a drum tech for Five Finger Death Punch for years, and he left that gig, and then he was out with somebody else. I can't remember who after that. He texted me and said, "Hey, what's up, man? How's your gig?" I said, "Oh, it's great. Are you out with somebody? What are you doing?" He goes, "Yeah, man. I'm out with John Fogerty." And I'm like,
Don't even tell
John
me.
Fogerty? Are you
Don't
teching
even-
for fucking Kenny? And he goes, yeah, on off. I'm like, you motherfucker. I hate you. I hate that guy.
And how did he say it was?
He said it was awesome. It was the best gig he's ever had. The perks from it. I mean, the way he treats him.
Cool guy.
Plus,
he's not,
like,
he's
I've
not a
heard
dick.
so many
He's not a dick.
podcasts with
He's not a
Kenny
dick.
Arnold. He is just like, that guy is a machine.
Yeah, but you got to know your shit. And this guy's really good. This tech is really, really good. He knows
He's a good
his
tech.
shit.
Yeah.
Really
Who else does this tech work with?
Oh, God. Blondie.
Okay.
who's the drummer from-
Clembert.
Clem,
Oh,
yeah. He was
Clembert.
just a modern drummer.
He's a,
They
he's a
just,
monster.
they just did an online.
Tune into our podcast. There'll be a lot of interesting things, obviously, and more to look forward to in the weeks to come.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
God.
This is Pete and
Drama. Paco Butchie.
JK. Just kidding.
Just kidding.
signing off for now. Drum Talk. See you next time. Probably next week. All right. Bye-bye. So long. Farewell.
The
Yeah.
worst session ever.
JK?
Right. Right. Right.